Your heart is beating way too fast, and it's not having the time to fill up before it pumps again. And there's just not enough oxygen in your blood. I told him, I said, when you don't get enough oxygen to your brain, you get sleepy. I said, Darren, time will come when you don't want to breathe anymore. It's too much work. You're too tired. And you won't. You will drift off to a very, very deep sleep. You'll be in a coma. Your breaths will get further apart and more shallow till finally they stop. Your heart will stop and you will die. This is the hardest conversation I've ever had to have with a loved one. I have seen death. I appreciated the hospice team in trying to prepare me for this. But you see, as a caregiver, I could not allow myself to go there. Any general will tell you, in the heat of the battle, you never think of defeat. When guys are falling all around you, you think of one thing, and that's victory. I knew I was in the fight of my life with my mother time and time again. But I could not think of defeat. I wanted proactive care. I wanted everybody that came into contact with my mother to give her every chance at life, no matter what. Mom had taught me that if you're going to make an error for life. When you're a caregiver, you're on a roller coaster ride that you have no control over. You don't have control over events and emotions. When your patient is doing great, you feel 20 feet tall, and you are so happy you don't even feel the ground. But when they're not, you fall in the deepest despair. As Winston Churchill said, the black dog. The black dog got a hold of me a lot. I tried to fight it off. But it's tough. You're isolated. You're lonely. You're perpetually scared. You're scared to sleep. You're afraid that you may wake up alone. When hospice came in, I assumed and I thought that y'all had understood the life of a caregiver. Many of you did. I thought y'all understood, looking through my eyes at that patient, living in my world, that you could understand. There was people in and out of our house all the time. But very few people I knew could relate to that kind of pressure, knowing that if you miss something or if you overlook something, it could mean her life. Knowing that she could get a stroke that fast and your whole world changes again, like it had in 2002. That's always with you. Some of them would come in and say, how's your mom? And how are you? And I, in some weak moments, confided in some, and I let my weaknesses show. 99 9/10 of the time, I tried very hard to be tough, be strong. But when I read the records, it saddened me that a lot of people I thought got mother, understood mother, hadn't. I felt betrayed. I felt like a fool. I felt like at times I was a lab rat that somebody just come along and tweaked to see how they would react. A lot of people I had more respect for after reading the records. Pam, Tracy, Mitzi, ones like that. I saw that they got it. Did I agree with everything I read in the records? No. But everything that they wrote, they told to my face. We talked about it. Their perceptions were a little different from my perceptions, and vice versa. My mom said no two people are always going to agree on everything. If they do, somebody's lying. But I had more respect for them because they had the backbone to tell me to my face. When I read the records, a story came to mind. And I want to tell it real quick. Della Reese told this story on herself years ago. She said that one of her biggest heroes was Mahalia Jackson. And from a lady from New Orleans, I have pretty strong ties to New Orleans, and I have to agree. I've always loved Mahalia. But she said that it was her goal as a kid to go on tour with her. In those days, Mahalia Jackson would load up some kids, teenagers mostly, and they'd go from town to town on a bus for revivals. Della Reese was a little younger than most kids that was selected to do this, but her parents told Miss Mahalia that if she promised to keep Della Reese with her at all times, that she'd allow her to go. Well, she was thrilled. This was a dream come true. They practiced a song that Della Reese finally had an opportunity to have a solo part in. She was thrilled. At the rehearsal, she played it right down the line. She sang it just like she was supposed to. But she had a plan. That night during the revival, she let her rip. This was her audition, and she used it that way. She hit the highest high notes, and she hit the lowest low notes. She held those lines out, those notes out. She had a flawless performance, and she knew it. I did good. She couldn't wait for that crazy preacher man to stand down where she could hear all the attagirls. And man, you've got a voice of an angel. But it didn't come. No one commented on her song at all. It was killing her. By the time that they had gone to the home that they were going to stay in that night, it was killing her. So she finally brought it up. She said, "Miss Mahalia, what did you think of my song?" She said, "I'll never forget what she told me. And every time I sing, her words always come back to my mind." She said, "Child, let me tell you, when you sing for show, that shows. When you sing from the heart, when you sing for the Lord, that too shows." Reading those records, I wondered why some chose to be chaplains, chose to be bereavement counselors, chose to be nurses. Because when you do this job for a paycheck, it shows. When you do it from the heart, that too shows. It's felt with the patient and their families. It shows. 10 people came to the funeral home for my mother that cared for her before we came to hospice. One lady drove almost 2 hours to get there and had not cared for my mother in about 4 or 5 years. She had 2 doctors and a judge come to pay respects to my mother. This meant a lot to me. 10 people from hospice came. 10 from hospice.